today's Coaching Coordinator podcast, we talk about how building relationships outside your position group can help the overall camaraderie of the team. We're going to get into explosive returns, and we're going to discuss how being successful can lead from a philosophy of just being where your feet are. And joining me is the safeties coach and special teams coordinator at Baylor, Matthew Powledge. Matt, great to have you here on the podcast.
Man, great to be here, Keith. I really appreciate it.
So, Coach, for you, this idea of becoming a coach, you told me, started back when you were in high school. At 16 years old, you decided this was something you wanted to do. How did that come about for you?
So I think for me at 16 years old, I was kind of the man of the house. I was looking for maybe a little bit of guidance and, as a young man kind of making that transition at that age, I felt like a lot of people that were having an impact on my life and shaping me into the man I am today were coaches. And I was learning a lot of lessons through athletics, specifically football. And there were some football coaches that were making a real difference on me. And in saying that, I realized that at a young age and said, hey, it's been so impactful in my life that, I want to do the same thing one day. And I want to be like some of these guys that are putting a hand on my shoulder and coaching me up, not just in football, but in life. And so that was kind of the spark right there. I think I didn't know that I wanted to coach college until I got to college. I think I thought I wanted to be the head coach at Huntsville High School where I played in Huntsville, Texas. But once I got to college and I got a taste for, college football, that's kind of where I transitioned and wanted to be a college coach.
So you look back to the beginning of your coaching career and those first opportunities, what were some of the lessons or the things you learned early on that were impactful and are a big part of who you are today?
Yeah. So I think, for me, I look back at my high school experience, and one of the quotes that always stuck out that our high school coach told us, and I think, talking to you, I think it maybe came from Tom Coughlin, or at least maybe he popularized it, but being where your feet are. And for me, that when I was first kind of exposed to this quote, right, it was my high school coach talking to me about, hey, don't worry about, college ball right now, right? I know you want to play college ball, but be where your feet are. If you can be the best high school football player you possibly can for this football team, and you can work hard towards your goals here, then those dreams and those aspirations will kind of fall into place. And so when I got into the profession, it was really along the same lines. I saw a lot of people that, were job hunting 24/7. They were more worried about the next place they were going. They weren't really worried about this place or that place. And that quote kind of stuck with me, and it resonated with me that, hey man, if I want great things to happen in this profession, I need to be the best possible coach that I can be at such and such school. I need to be the best GA that I possibly can be at Southeastern Louisiana. And that was kind of my drive, my work ethic. I was going to outwork everybody and be where my feet are, be at that place. And then hopefully, somebody will recognize and hopefully, be rewarded. But that was kind of that. I felt like I learned that early on in the profession, and that's kind of stuck with me.
How does that taking that approach compared to, being the guy who's the lobby lizard at AFCA or, is constantly on his laptop on Football Scoop looking at what the next opportunity is, how does taking the approach of just being where your feet are versus always being, hyper aware of, oh, this opportunity is that opportunity is open, a better approach, do you feel?
Yeah. Well, see, I think it's fine, like, to have dreams, right? Like, hey, I want to be the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys one day, right? But I don't think, like, calling the Dallas Cowboys and asking them, like, hey, can I come be the head coach next year? I don't think that's going to necessarily get it done, right? And so for me, it's like, okay, short term, like, what do I have to do, like, where I'm at? So, like, at Southeastern Louisiana, it hey, I want to be, 100% every single day. Like I want to come in here, be consistent, give 100% effort, and just constantly work the process. And so that process for me, might have included, making coffee and then, taking notes for the offensive staff during film sessions and then typing them up and then handing them out, that afternoon. And then, doing whatever I had to do, whatever was asked and coming in with a good attitude every day. And I think that is ultimately, more rewarding on both ends. And that's kind of been the formula, you know what I mean, that I've used, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know the other way, really. I've just kind of seen it from afar, and it's a little bit different to me, that whole aspect. I'm sure it can work in some ways too. I just felt like, that being where your feet are and being the best at your specific job at that point in time, that's the route for me.
Yeah, you mentioned yourself as like a high energy guy, and certainly this is about where you're going to put your energy and focus. And it, when you put it into the job you're doing, obviously you have a much better chance of success in helping others along the way as well. And that's gone a long way for you in being able to provide some energy for the team, because you're in your position as special teams coordinator. You're really one of three guys who really touches the whole program. It's the head coach, it's the strength coach, and it's the special teams coordinator. So for you, you do develop those relationships outside your room. How important is that for you? And what results have you seen of really being able to just step out of coaching that single group of players?
Yeah. So for me, I've seen big results from it, and I probably didn't realize it until I got into special teams early on in my career. I was on the offensive side of the ball. I was a graduate assistant for our offensive line. I was a tight ends coach. I was a running backs coach. And then all of a sudden I had the opportunity to be a graduate assistant in 2013 for Bradley Del Pivito at the University of Kentucky. And I got my kind of first taste of what that was like. And I think the thing that I realized really that next year I'm at Sam Houston State as the special teams coordinator is, wow, I'm coaching everybody. And I always thought, a coach should really get to know his players, should really work on the relationship aspect of everything, building those relationships, getting to know where they're from, their story, who they are, right? And so for me, that was really getting to know the whole team. We had O linemen and field goal protection meetings, and then we had D linemen and field goal block meetings, and then we had the quarterbacks also. There was a couple of them that were holders for us, and the next thing you know, if there was 110 on the roster, I was getting to know everybody. And some people, that may seem exhausting to some people, but I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of a people person, and I noticed that it went a long way. And so in building those relationships, I just felt like you got more out of the players. They were willing to go above and beyond for you. I had a coach in high school that, at that point in time, if he told me to jump off a cliff, I would have. And I think a lot of it was just the relationship that he had with me, right? And how real he was with me, how truthful, I trusted him. And so in saying that, I think you'd be amazed what you can get out of your players if you pour into them. And so that's been me.
Now, do you think, someday along the line, let's say you become a defensive coordinator and you got that one side of the ball, is that something you're going to make a point to make sure that you're expanding outside just your unit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you never know who you can reach and who you can impact, right? And what type of relationships that you can find on that football team. I just think from a camaraderie, from a morale standpoint, and then, reaching some kids, because you might have a different connection with them and you don't know until you try. And so I think that's really unique. And that's something that really Coach Aranda's really building here at Baylor. I think that makes us unique, as a program in general, is we're really becoming a close-knit staff. We're becoming a close-knit team, and just all the way across the board, you see different relationships on different sides of the ball. And it's not just me as the special teams coordinator, but it's really other coaches on our staff too. So I think that's really, really cool. I think it's going to be a difference maker for us. And in my past, I've seen it be a difference maker for me and other coaches.
getting into the special teams aspect of what you do. Definitely on the kickoff return side of things, you've been able to see a lot of explosive returns. So just looking, first of all, at the overall objective of what you're trying to accomplish in that unit, how do you set up, in the framework of, all right, guys, here's what we're trying to do. Here's our big objectives.
Yeah, so we look at it as an attacking offensive play. We want to be on the attack. We're not a, hey, it's got to be perfect for us to return the football. No, we want to make sure that we're giving our offense the best field position possible. And so that's always kind of been the mindset there. And, dating back 2017, I think we led the country in kickoff return touchdowns. We had 4. And I really noticed that year, like once we started being explosive on that phase of the game, people started sky kicking us, squib kicking us, and next thing you know, we're still getting great field position out of it. So since then, like that's been the goal. Is like, hey, let's be explosive. Let's be on the attack, right? Let's create big returns, and the result of that is, people are going to kick away from other people, and they're still going to give you good field position. So I think in 18 we might have led the country in explosive return. Same thing in 19, and both of those years we were top 20 in the country in kickoff return average. And then dating to this year, I think we had 7 returns of 40 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. And now all of a sudden you got people squibbing you and giving it to you at midfield or sky kicking you and the same result, right? So that's been big for us, is to try to help our football team win the field position battle, and that's been really fun.
So when you do start to become successful at that unit, you start to see less and less of the returnable kicks. Obviously everybody wants to put it through the end zone if they can. You see a lot of teams now using that fair catch to move the ball up. What's the approach you guys take? You want to still attack with that? Or are you going to take what they give? What's been that philosophy?
Yeah, so we usually study in the in the week to come, early on in the week, our opponent, and if they have the ability to hit touchbacks, what is the actual hang time of that kick? And so we might adjust exactly what our line is, exactly what we're going to bring out or what we won't bring out, just based on how long that ball's in the air and what the team speed is on the other side of the kick. So that's always kind of a starting point. Now, as far as like sky kicks, squib kicks, we're not a fair catch or just secure operation on that end of things either. Like we want to field them and we want to get vertical right now. So if you're going to sky kick it at the 20 or the 25, like our goal is to get that ball out there to the 35 or the 40. And so that takes work. And we start, that's kind of where we start day one with kickoff return and spring ball and fall camp. Is we want to have a foundation and let our guys know, like, look, we're starting with this. And the reason why is because we're going to be so dangerous and so explosive that we're going to get this, whether it's week 3, week 5, week 7. There's going to be a point in time this year where people concede of hitting the ball deep to number 1 and number 3, and they're going to start hitting it to number 44. And we want to be just as dangerous and give our offense the same advantage of starting close to midfield.
From a schematic perspective, how much do you guys carry in terms of different types of returns, and is there a sweet spot for you with that?
Yeah, so for me, we go into fall camp and we're going to really teach kind of our sky, squib, alternate adjustment. We're going to teach a boundary return. We're going to teach a field return, and then we'll also teach a counter. For me, I've kind of categorized the difference between a field and a counter as basically like our field return is like, hey, we're taking it back to the field, and if you know it, great. We don't care. Hey, we got all that space back to the field, and we're going to utilize it. Our counter for us has been like a setup, like almost like a surprise, like, haha, gotcha. You know what I mean? So that's been kind of the difference between those. And so in saying that, we'll enter the season with that, and then we might just tweak them here or there. But typically we'll go into a ball game with probably 3 returns, really working 2 something to the boundary, something to the field to complement it, and then going in there with that sky adjustment. So you can usually build on that or maybe tweak it just a hair, but I'm not someone that's going to be drawing up brand new returns every week and make it complicated. And I want our guys to play fast, and really I want to stress the one-on-one matchups that are happening all over the field.
In your approach to coaching up the kick return, how are you utilizing the time you have? Is there individual, is there group? How much of the full speed reps, are you allotting with that kind of time?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically one time a week, we're going to use a 8-minute period for us on special teams for kickoff return. And that's going to be dedicated to us getting basically group reps. So we usually break that down and get, a half line rep. A half line rep for us would be like the three, we're a 6-man front line. So 3 frontline players getting a rep going against the backside of the kickoff unit away from the kick. And then we'll go, the second part of that half line drill would be the other 3 frontline players going with the back line and the returners. So that would be a half line rep. Then we would go into 2 full group reps. So we're basically getting 3 reps with the 1s and 2s in an 8-minute period, one time a week. And then usually later on in the week, we'll have a 4-minute period where we're going to hit some alternate kicks, some skies, some squibs, maybe a surprise onside, and really try to stress our guys and make sure that we're ready if those things arise on a Saturday. And then, Sundays and on bye weeks, that we'll try to brush up on our fundamentals, our techniques, and really get some drill time in. So that's been kind of the goal, and we try to stay consistent and hard to that and continue to chop wood throughout the season.
I know some of the guys who really have to be the most fundamentally sound on the kick return are your front line guys. They've got the farthest run in order to get to their drop points, to execute their blocks. And, they have, in doing that, they're running, with their head turned, being able to see where their guy is, et cetera. What are the best drills you have for working that aspect of the return?
Yeah, so for me, the one that I love the best is really our day one drill. We take those guys and go basically 3 at a time. So the 3 frontline players maybe to the left of the picture, the 3 frontline players to the right of the picture. We'll go a rep where we'll have the kicker basically swing through like he's kicking in a direction. We'll have a returner back there and an off returner. And for us, basically what we're working is basically what we call, we incorporate a jab step, which I could probably spend 5 minutes just talking about that, but we incorporate our jab step, we sprint back and find the returner. So that's one of the first parts of the drill that's extremely important, find the returner. So we'll have one of the returners throw his hand up like he's catching the ball. We'll have the other returner sprint to that opposite returner. And so they're basically working their drop, seeing the returner in their drop, and then they're getting back there to the proper yard line, sprinting with hot feet, and then we do a mat drill basically from there. We don't ask them to seat roll, but we'll shuffle them left with a good base, shuffle them right with a good base, and then we want them to finish the drill by attacking for 5 yards because we're a little bit different. We're a little bit unique on the front line of kickoff return. We're not going to sink and pedal quite as much as some people. We're not just trying to catch and absorb. We're more trying to strike and trying to draw a line in the sand, if you will. So that's probably a little bit different, but that's a great drill for us just to start off and kind of, I want those guys to understand that they're going to have to sprint back there. 2, find the returner, and then 3, get set up quickly and be on the attack.
When you look at that type of technique, now do you maybe use a different type of personnel than other people do? Who are you looking to fill those roles?
Yeah. So for us, usually on the backside away from the kick, we'll play with a little bit better athletes, fluid hips, some of those cutoff blocks. I think more so on the front side of the kick, though, we're usually looking for bigger personnel. That might be bigger running backs, maybe an athletic tight end, maybe linebacker bodies, bigger DBs, because we're a little bit more stern, I guess you could say, and we're a little bit more stout at the point of attack. But to me, it's really more about a mindset than it is so much as about, hey, you got to have this body type. So there's got to be a little bit of courage, in a frontline player, in my opinion. And so, I kind of go back to the first spring practice that I had at Louisiana Lafayette. I had a receiver come up to me that he was starting receiver for us. He said, "Coach, I just want to let you know how much I'm enjoying, what we're doing right now, kickoff return." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well," he said, "I felt like a year ago it was all about like catching, absorbing, trying to settle, turn the guy the opposite direction of the return." He said, "I feel like here, like we're the hammer, like we're not the nail." And so that really kind of resonated for me as well. It's like I'm giving these guys an opportunity to actually win this rep, as opposed to, I think sometimes like you feel like you may have won the rep because of what you did, but you felt like you lost the rep, if that makes sense, on kickoff return. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in saying that, that's kind of what we've gone to, and we've had some success with it.
In looking at really either aspect of special teams, the kickoff or the punt, the return team seems to be more vulnerable to those penalties, right? The block in the back, etc. What kinds of tips do you have to your players to help avoid those, or what kind of techniques do you use that help avoid those types of penalties?
Yeah, absolutely. So on kickoff return and punt return, we use a lot of the same terminology. A lot of like penalty beaters or penalty saving drills. So for kickoff return, we really stress, having our hands inside, thumbs up, elbows in, tight hands when we strike and engage. We talk about if our hands get outside our framework, you know what I mean? We want to basically, we call it long arm to dead arm. So for instance, if my hands are getting outside the left side of my framework, then I'd want to drop the left arm, right? And I'd want to extend my right arm and go long with it. And now just basically try to wash the guy away and stay between him and the returner. So in saying that, that's one of them right there. That's one of the main coaching points. If I get beat, you know what I mean, then I'm going to find the returner. I'm going to try to go to the returner and see if I can cut that guy off at an intersection point. So if that's applicable, then that's number two. That's what we want to do if we've lost the rep initially. And then number three for us, we talk about within 10 yards of whoever's got the ball. If I can't make a block on this guy, if I can't cut him off, if I can't get to a spot and shield him away from the returner, then we just want to cut bait. Okay. And I tell them the guys that we're going to put back there are the returners are some of the best athletes on our team. And we want them, to understand that, yeah, we want to make the block, but at the end of the day, some of these guys have the athletic ability to make people miss an open field, right? So if you can save us from getting a penalty and just turn back upfield, and if he can make one guy miss, and now all of a sudden he's up to the second level where you are, and you're blocking somebody else that maybe got free late or just double teaming and leading, now all of a sudden we got a chance to create an explosive. So those are probably the top three things that I would say that we've used in those type of situations to avoid penalties, and we really coach the mess out of them. If it shows up on tape at practice, then we want to make sure that we show it to our team. If it shows up in a game, right, then we want to make sure that we're showing it to our team, and that could be on both sides of it. It could be our kickoff team was running down there, and the opposing kickoff return team got called for a penalty. You know what I mean? I'll talk to everybody in the room that's on our kickoff return team and say, hey, see this? This is a good lesson for us on the other side of it. They made a poor decision, right? And it cost the team, 15 yards or half the distance to the goal line.
So looking at the other side of the equation, the kickoff, you guys become known for some movement within there. And certainly if you can do movement right, and this really is a defensive principle too. If you can do movement right and everybody maintains their quote unquote gap integrity or lanes in this case, it could cause some issues for for a team. So for you, what's the philosophy behind, how you guys set that up?
Yeah, so I think looking at it from a return perspective, and I think this is one of the reasons why, I kind of went with it, is because I felt like, some of the movement used to give us trouble on kickoff return. And, we had to work it. Well, so for me, I kind of wanted to implement it from a kickoff perspective. And I think the first year I was moving people just to move people and trying to be cute. So what we've done the last few years is, we've really tried to teach whole concepts. So where we can move players around positionally and still get, the integrity of the coverage, keep that intact. So we've moved guys around from a personnel standpoint where they might have played this position last week. They might be playing another position the next week. We've moved people before the ball's been kicked, whether that's a waterfall or some type of motion pre-kick. We've post-kick, we've twisted and turned guys, things like that. And typically, it's me kind of studying what the return team does. And then saying, okay, here's where they're vulnerable. Here's where we maybe can implement some type of stunt or some type of movement and make things really, really hard on them. Maybe get a one-on-one situation that we really want, where we feel like one of our better players is against somebody that you're not real high on. So different things like that for us has been key in that phase of the game. So it's been fun. It really is.
When you look at the punt side of things too, again, another thing maybe unique to you. You're a shield team, yet you split your gunners out. How do you feel that's advantageous? And I guess how do you prevent that situation where you're kicking guys back inside? Because I've seen teams try to do that, but then they get dictated to by the return team a little bit.
Yeah. So for us, on that phase of the game, we feel like from a punter perspective and from a flyer perspective, that it's our job to force fair catches and eliminate return opportunities. And so we set a goal at the beginning of the year, like, hey, we're going to force, 50% fair catches, basically based off, kick placement or hang time, and based off the speed that we play at the gunner positions. Well, okay, if we're going to count on basically those two main cover guys being those two gunners doing that, then it's a whole heck of a lot easier when they're in a receiver or racing stance out on the edge, right? And on the snap, they're not having to worry about coverage. And so for us, a lot of it has started with operation. I think you got to have a snapper. I think you got to have a punter that can get the ball off, an ample amount of time. I think that's key. I think you have to have the ability to change or switch the protection based on look and still feel comfortable about your coverage. And so that's something that we work tremendously hard at. And then lastly, I think you got to have change-ups, right? I don't think it can always be the same as. I don't think anybody for us, can usually look at our tape and say, okay, well, if we line up like this is what we're going to get. So we have base rules. We go into fall camp. We drill those rules hard. And then we have a couple of change-ups that we can do, whether that's from a protection standpoint or whether that's, shifting or motioning a guy. And now all of a sudden you become kind of hard to read, and you have the ability to leave those gunners out there and just let them do what you've asked them to do back day one of punt install meeting.
Coach, when you look at everything you do with your guys, whether that's as the safeties coach, the special teams coach, the guy who's building relationships with the quarterback, whatever it might be, what's the one thing that really gives your guys the winning edge?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all built around, the energy and the passion that I bring every single day. And I think if I can get our players to kind of feed off that, right, and they kind of share that same energy and passion, I think it comes out in what they do out on the football field. To me, that's everything. And I love the game of football. It's probably my greatest passion. When I come out on the field, it just comes out of me. So in saying that, I think that's kind of our advantage, just the burn, that we have inside our gut, to play the game, to coach the game. We're gonna be more enthusiastic about it than you are. We're gonna have more of a desire, to compete and win than you are, just because of how much we poured into it, how much we care about each other, and I think that kind of makes us go the extra mile. So in saying that, I would say maybe that's our advantage, is really the relationships that we built each other, and then our passion for each other and the game.
Coach, for our listeners, what areas do you recruit?
So specifically, I recruit San Antonio and Austin, and then surrounding areas, mostly in the state of Texas. So we'll positional recruit as well, and we'll go outside the state to positional recruit, whether that's specialist or safeties for me specifically. But those are the primary areas for me.
And the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Best way, probably either through Twitter or even email. I do a decent job of checking email daily in the morning time when I first get to work, and then I try to do a great job of responding to that as well.
What's your Twitter handle, Coach?
It'd be at Coach Powledge.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on the podcast and breaking down some of your special teams for us. And best of luck to you and the Bears in 2021.
Thank you so much, Keith. It was an awesome experience, and wishing you guys the best. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. Please, if you are enjoying the podcast, head over to iTunes or Spotify and click 5-star for a rate. If you have a minute, write a review. It really helps the podcast. Check out our new home for the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. That's at coachandcoordinator.com. And follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.